3 countries, 3 stadiums, 3 Coca-Colas. They taste different. Same red can, same white script, same logo, different liquid inside. This summer, the World Cup kicks off across Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And the Coke in each stadium won't be the same drink. But here's something that might surprise you. Every can of Coca-Cola still contains an extract from the same plant that produces cocaine. One factory in New Jersey, and only one, holds a federal license to import those coca leaves, strip the cocaine out, and ship the rest to Atlanta. The extract has its own code name in company ledgers. It's been in the formula since 1886, and the label just says, natural flavors. How does the most regulated plant on Earth end up in the most consumed drink on Earth? 1886. Atlanta. A pharmacist named John Pemberton mixes a syrup in a brass kettle, carries it to Jacob's Pharmacy, and sells 9 glasses on the first day at 5 cents each. Total first-year revenue, $50 against $70 in expenses. He died 2 years later. Never sees a dime of what comes next. But the coca leaf stays in the recipe, and that's where the real story starts. When the US government began cracking down on cocaine in the early 1900s, Coca-Cola didn't drop the leaf. They found a workaround. A chemical plant in Maywood, New Jersey, originally called Maywood Chemical Works, began processing coca leaves specifically for Coca-Cola. Strip the cocaine out, keep the flavor. Lawmakers even wrote a special exemption into the Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914. Critics called it the Coca-Cola Joker. Now here's the kicker. That arrangement never ended. The Maywood plant was bought by a company called Stepan in 1959, and Stepan Company is still, right now, today, the only entity in the United States authorized by the DEA to import coca leaves. They arrive from Peru, roughly 100 metric tons per year. Supervised gram for gram, Stepan extracts the cocaine and sells it to a pharmaceutical manufacturer for use as a surgical anesthetic. The spent leaves, stripped of their narcotic but still carrying the plant's aromatic compounds, get processed into a flavor extract. Inside Coca-Cola's ledgers, it has a code name, Merchandise Number 5. That extract ships to Atlanta, and it ends up in every can, every bottle, every fountain cup sold anywhere on the planet. The most famous soft drink in the world starts with a plant that's illegal to grow, illegal to possess, and illegal to import, unless you're one company in New Jersey with a piece of paper from the DEA. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Coca-Cola doesn't make Coca-Cola. Not the cans, not the bottles, not the fountain cups. The company in Atlanta makes one thing, syrup concentrate. That concentrate ships to over 200 bottling partners across the globe, and those partners handle everything else. They mix, they carbonate, they fill, they cap, they load the trucks. Every can you've ever opened was made by a company you've never heard of. But here's the thing. That concentrate has to taste identical whether it's cracked open in Hanoi, Houston, or Helsinki. And 90% of what's in the can isn't syrup, it's water. So the whole process starts with the least glamorous step in the building. Water treatment. Local tap water, whatever comes out of the pipes in that city, gets filtered through sand beds, passed through activated carbon towers that strip out chlorine and organic compounds, pushed through reverse osmosis membranes that catch minerals, bacteria, trace chemicals. The goal isn't clean water, it's blank water. Water that tastes like nothing, carries nothing. So the only flavor left in the glass is the formula: Lagos, Louisville, Lima. By the time the water hits the mixing tank, a chemist couldn't tell you which city it came from. Once the water's neutral, workers in stainless steel mixing rooms blend it with a concentrate and a sweetener. And here's where same formula falls apart. In Mexico, cane sugar. In the United States, high fructose corn syrup. In Canada, corn syrup. In parts of Europe, beet sugar. Same recipe, different sweeteners, different tastes. And the reason isn't science, it's politics. The 1973 Farm Bill flooded the US with cheap corn. Sugar import quotas made cane expensive. By 1984, Coca-Cola had swapped every American bottling plant to corn syrup. The label didn't change, the logo didn't change, the liquid did, and nobody told you. Now here's the wild part. The pH of Coca-Cola is 2.37, more acidic than vinegar. It dissolves calcium phosphate, which is why the internet says it eats through rust, strips paint, cleans toilet bowls. And it does, all of those things. But your stomach acid sits at a pH between 1.5 and 3.5. Your own gut is harsher than a can of Coke. The drink people warn you about is weaker than the acid you're producing right now, sitting in your chair, doing absolutely nothing. Carbonation adds another layer. The finished drink gets chilled to around 3 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. Because colder liquid absorbs more gas, carbon dioxide gets injected under pressure. That tingle on your first sip isn't flavor. It's carbonic acid forming on your tongue as the gas reacts with moisture in your mouth. You're not tasting the fizz. You're feeling a chemical reaction. Open the can, and that pressure drops to 1 atmosphere in under a second. That's the hiss. Then it's speed. Filling lines push up to 2,000 cans per minute. Aluminum cans arrive flat, get punched into shape, coated inside with a food-grade polymer so the acid doesn't eat the metal. Each filled can pass sensors checking fill level, seal integrity, cap placement. Random pulls go to a quality lab. Technicians taste, measure bricks level for sweetener concentration, test carbonation pressure. If a batch drifts off spec, it doesn't leave the building. Here's where the story flips. June 2026. The World Cup opens across 3 countries, 48 teams, 16 stadiums. Coca-Cola's logo on every billboard, every cup, every broadcast. One brand, one color, one promise. But fans from 48 nations will drink dozens of different Coca-Colas. Mexico City gets cane sugar. New Jersey gets corn syrup. Toronto gets corn syrup from a different bottler with different water. Different sweetener in every country, different water in every city. And the brand identity is so powerful that nobody in any of those stadiums will realize they're drinking a different product than the fan in the next seat who flew in from another continent. That's not a secret recipe locked in a vault. That's something bigger. The illusion of sameness. One red can, worldwide, containing a drink that quietly changes with every border it crosses. So let's go back to that pharmacy counter. 1886, 9 glasses, $50. You know the natural flavors on every Coca-Cola label include an extract from the same plant that produces cocaine, processed in a single New Jersey factory under DEA watch since 1914. You know the pH of every can is 2.37, and your own stomach acid is stronger. You know fans at the World Cup opener in Mexico City and fans at the final in New Jersey will raise the same red can, and the liquid inside won't be the same drink. The next time you crack one open, listen to the hiss, feel the cold, and know that what you're holding isn't one recipe. It's a different recipe, depending on where you're standing. That's the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there's something you'd like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.